That's why everything's so slow. Okay. Make sure everything's up. Yeah, there we go. Okay, looks like we're at 8:30 or 8:30, 1:30. Do we have enough people to move on here? 1, 2,
I think we only have
3, 4, 5, 6. We only have 6, I think. We'll need 1 or 2 more. I think it's 1 more.
we kind of got committee of the half.
Yeah. Couldn't we harass? Oh, wow. Okay. Well, there we go. Thank you for connecting, Kristen. I think that's enough to move forward here. I'm gonna harass Shari. All right. I'll just send messages to hey, to both Shari and Ron. But I do think we have enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 14 of us. Does it need to be a majority or can it be full, like 50%?
I think we need 1 more.
Yeah, I think we need 50% plus 1, don't we?
It is. So
Yeah.
we need number 8.
I'm not friends with Ron Corbeil on Facebook, but I sent a message to him. If anybody has his cell phone, please text it. City, everyone is here on the EA side, plus Kirsten. Oh, I know.
Don't forget, John, I've got 2 votes. So I don't know if that takes us anywhere, but
I think it's actual butts and seats, not full votes. Okay. Unfortunately, that would be good though. Oh, Wilf. What about Wilfred? Rochelle cannot make it. Maybe Tom? I wouldn't expect Tom to be on social media though.
I just spoke with Ron Corbeil and I'm sending him an invite to another email of his.
Great, thank you. He was such a road warrior last meeting. He was in his car the whole time. I assume he's on the road or on holiday or something. What's the weather like in Port Alberni or the area right now? It's a bit cooler here on the East Coast. Yeah, same.
Yeah, a little bit cooler today in cloud cover.
Yeah, muggy. Yay! There we go. Thank you, Shari. Alrighty. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8. Perfect. And then with Ron, that'll be great. Thank you for connecting, Dr. Minions and Dr. Johnson. All right, so we're going to kick off here. So we'll call to order at 1:35 p.m. I'll note that we're conducting our meeting principally on the territories of the Hupetchesett and Tashot First Nations, as that's where our main offices are. However, since we're conducting a hybrid meeting, both online and in person, we'll be coming to you live from New Channel's territories as a whole. In addition, some of us may be coming in from Coast Salish territories, and so on and so forth. I would note that we have what appears to be our Vice Chair, Director McNabb, as well as Director Roberts in the ACRD office today. I am not in the office today because I was sick as a dog yesterday and the day before. That's why I have the sound. It's not from congestion. It's from throwing up all day. That was bad. But I'm feeling better now. That's why I'm here. But I would like to just recognize that we're having a committee of the whole meeting. And I want to thank everyone for attending, especially Director Corbeil, who I would note, and I forgot to thank you yet last time, you were in your car the entire meeting, last meeting, Ron, and that was deeply appreciated. I know it's tough to be a road warrior from time to time, but really helping out here. All righty. We are being live streamed on YouTube as well as through an embedded video on our ACRD website. We're not monitoring the chat nor the chat internal to the Zoom meeting. If you want to ask a question, you may be able to do so through the Q&A in the panelist discussion on Zoom, or more reliably through responses at acrd.bc.ca. And that would probably be the best way to go about doing it. All right, I think that's it for the introduction and call to order. I would like to ask for an approval of the agenda with the 2 items, the 3 items. Yeah, 3 items plus minutes and a delegation. Thank you, Director Roberts, seconded by Director Bodner. Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Oh, Director McNabb, did you have a comment? Sorry.
Nope, I just said I just in case you didn't see.
Oh, okay. Great, thank you. All right, all those in favor, we did that. Motion carried. Okay, that brings us to the minutes for the committee of the whole meeting dated April 20th, 2022. Would anyone like to move that?
Those are minutes.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Seconded by, thank you, Director Shannon. Comments, errors, omissions, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to petitions, delegations, and presentations. We have a planning consultant in regards to the Maplehurst Management Plan report. Since this is the main topic, it's something where I think we can maybe go over the 10 minutes. Normally delegations are 10-minute max, but this is a single item conversation, so it's probably good that we have this conversation here. I'd like to welcome Karen Albert. Hopefully you'll be able to share your screen, or if you need to. But yeah, please kick off and go ahead and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me at this meeting. And I'm zooming in from the traditional territory of the Comox First Nation, just north of Courtney. So it's great to be with you on Zoom. And yeah, I have a short presentation to share about the park management plan and the planning process. And I also have the plan itself open. So if there's any questions on specific items in the plan, I'm happy to be happy to discuss those. And yeah, what I was hoping to do is just go through the presentation and then take questions. If there's an urgent question for clarification, please raise your hand or like this or through the Zoom. We can entertain that. But yeah, I'm hoping to get through the presentation first and then I'll have a discussion. So let me just share my screen. You hear me okay? Is the sound?
Could you increase your volume a little bit?
Yeah. I actually have a microphone up here. How is this? Is this any better?
Better.
Better? Not great? Better?
Karen, so if you look at your Zoom in the lower left there, you have the little microphone to mute yourself. There's a little arrow. If you click on that, you may be able to go to audio settings and turn your microphone up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I also have an external. Okay, I see what you mean. Oh, yeah. Okay.
It may be maxed out, but I think
Yeah, it
we're
actually
okay.
is maxed out. Okay, I'll try to speak loudly. All right. So share screen. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay. All right, are we all on the first page? Maplehurst Park Management Draft Plan?
Yep, looks like it.
Okay, great. All right. So yeah, what I was just briefly gonna provide the location for the park. I don't assume everyone's been there. What precipitated the planning project, why we do a park plan, the key content of the park management plan, the process itself, and some of the main themes that came out of the public engagement, and then the goals and implementation actions. And I expect you'll want to discuss some of that at the end. So, and as I said, if there's questions in between, feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll have time at the end. Yeah, so this is Maplehurst Park. It's at the edge of the western boundary of Cherry Creek electoral area, and to the south and west is Beaver Creek electoral area, and then Beaufort electoral area is to the north. So it's really quite an interesting location and very close to the city of Port Alberni. This is just zoomed in to the park and the park boundaries. So you can see there on the left, the images with the aerial photo shows a fairly recent, last few years, woodlot tenure that was awarded just to the northwest of the park. And then there's also a large piece of crown land that's currently not tenure, but maybe under application adjacent to the park. And the trail network extends outside of the park and into those two areas as well. Within the park, there's a couple of, like a figure 8 loop, and one of the trails goes by along the Kitsaxis River. So you can see on the image to the right, Willow Road, the end of Willow Road is the main access to the park. And actually to get to the park, people currently have to cross that piece of crown land. The trail goes across the crown land and then into the park. Strathcona Street within Cherry Creek electoral area is to the right of the park. And there's currently no direct access from that area. So yeah, what brought about the planning project? Primarily, there was an increase in park use in recent years, partially possibly due to COVID. People are finding ways to meet outside when inside was not really a good option. And also the park has been discovered, I guess, in many ways. It's now on some of the online apps that listed, such as All Trails, that list local trails. So it's been perhaps a little bit more discovered in the last number of years. And yeah, so that increased use also has an impact on the neighbors, on the trail system. And so it's a good time to check in with the park users, the neighbors, other stakeholders of what the priorities are for that area into the future as use is increasing. And these kind of park management plans are a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about use. And we had a survey out that had 251 respondents and gave us a good idea who the users are of the park, why they like to come there, and what their priorities are for the park. And then we also checked in at an open house. One of the interesting things, by the way, that we did find out, and which is really encouraging, is that actually of the park users, the way they get to the park, 18% walk. So that's really quite encouraging because it's not actually all that well connected to the community. So other than through at the end of Willow Road and Kitsaxas via another trail system across the Crown Land. And many people visited the park for a long time, but then there were also a lot of visitors park users who've discovered it in recent years. So then the goal really is to develop a plan based on the knowledge that we've gained through the public engagement process, interviews with stakeholders. We also had a meeting with First Nations, one formal, one more informal on a site visit. So that really helped inform the park management plan and what the priorities might be for the coming 10 up to 20 years, depends how use increases. That's then a choice to revisit the plan earlier if there's a lot of change in use over the coming years. And also the guides your expenditures, of course, over the coming years. So if you have this plan, it's based on the input that you've received, the knowledge that we've gained through the process. It helps allocate budgets. So this is the park management plan content. That's basically what you saw and if you've skimmed through the report or we've been able to read the plan, starts out with the park description, the history, the adjacent land uses to understand the context of the park. And then also understanding the values, how is it valued? First Nations culture is very important, and it's an ongoing process of learning and engagement with the First Nations. The ecosystem of the park, what do you have in terms of the natural environment and natural systems, recreational use, the spiritual mental health that's important to people when they visit a natural area, and understanding existing community involvement. And then content, the plan also talks briefly about the planning process and the main themes, and the engagement report is one of the appendices that goes into the details. The plan, based on what we've heard and learned through the planning process, the park plan also identifies challenges and opportunities for the coming years, issues that need to be addressed, but then also some of the things that really present opportunities for how the park can be further connected to the community and how use can be managed in the park. And all that informs really the long-term vision and goals for the park. They flow directly from the themes that we heard through the public engagement, the issues that we were discussed with the public and stakeholders, and the vision and goals. And then to implement those over the coming years, the plan includes an implementation section, which has actions and timelines. So this is just a quick schematic of the planning process. So we had the online survey earlier this year. As I mentioned, there was about just over 250 respondents. Also had some park user interviews, particular inside the park, but also then we had interviewed the neighbors on Willow Road who had particular concerns. And then we presented what we found and heard through the public survey, the interviews at the public open house to explore some of the issues that were raised in a little bit more depth and in person with people. And that was held at Cherry Creek Hall. And we had about 50 to 60 attendants and quite really good, helpful discussions that provide some depth to what you hear through the survey. Having said that, if you look at the survey results, I did also append the entire survey results, the responses to the open-ended questions, and people really put a lot of effort into and time into responding. And today we are in the Red Square. the presentation of this draft plan to this committee and to hear your input and thoughts, and make any edits, and then it would be referred to First Nations and posted online for public comments. There may be some final edits as a result of that, and then there'd be a final presentation to your board. So yeah, we did start out with some First Nation engagement and had one meeting with the Sishat Council online. Oops. Which was really helpful understanding a little bit about their concerns and interests. I think it's an ongoing effort and to continue to talk and learn about each other's interests. So the next step would be a referral of a draft plan for comment. And I said it's really just a start of an ongoing process, hopefully. And one of the goals really is to build that relationship with the First Nations and understand how they might want to be involved in projects in the park, or how they want their history and presence recognized on the land and within the park. So for public engagement, I'm just jumping right into the main themes that we heard. So this was really interesting. People really appreciate the park for what it is now. We had lots of comments on keep it the way it is, leave it alone, keep it natural. And ecosystem protection was identified as a priority for allocating any funding. So I think that's really important to understand it's really great the way it is. So which is actually a really nice thing to find out and learn. So really maintaining and looking at how those ecosystem values can be retained is key. Parking and park access, not surprising, did come up, of course, and you heard from the residents prior to this planning process or at the outset of it. Willow Road residents had particular concerns of parking along Willow Road and the congestion and the increase in use that they've seen over time, which impacts that road end. But also more generally, park access was brought up and the need to connect the park better to the surrounding neighborhoods. Willow Road being the primary access really provides great access for residents from Beaver Creek electoral area. But we, looking at it a bit closer, thought, well, it really would be great to also extend the connectivity to the other electoral areas that are so close to that park. So Cherry Creek, of course, the park's funded through the Cherry Creek Parks and Greenway Service, Community Park Service. It's a great opportunity to try and connect that, and that would also increase your mode of your pedestrian walking mode of travel to the park. If you have it more connected to the surrounding neighborhoods, it reduces the need to drive to that green space, which I think is something we all want as we're trying to encourage more active transportation, both from a health and environmental perspective. We also identified connectivity to other community trails. There's a few other trail networks that are not that far away. And over time, as opportunities arise and in partnership with adjacent landowners or the city of Port Alberni, in the case of the Kitsaxis Dike Trail, seeking to connect those other community trails to the park. Again, same reason I think that we're looking at how we could connect the park better to Strathcona Street. It's just having fingers extend from the park, green fingers into the community means more people can walk. Recreation happens right at your doorstep. It distributes the impact. There's not one single parking area where everyone goes to and drives to. And it really feeds into a whole active transportation network. So there is some opportunities for that. It might be a medium to longer term goal, but I think having it in the plan is really important. So as an opportunity arises, there's some policy that supports an action in that regard. Reconciliation with First Nation was mentioned at the public meetings as well, and also in the survey, and the importance to understand their presence, their current presence, their history, their cultural use of the park, and continue to have those discussions with them of how they might want to be recognized on the landscape and find opportunities for collaborating on projects. Not surprisingly, the recreational trail network on the adjacent Crown land came up, both in the survey and also at the public open house. A lot of visitors probably don't know where the boundaries of the park start and end. So the trail apps that you can find online communicate a much bigger loop, which goes onto the Crown Lands, which is a 3.2 kilometer loop. And I found some of the people who I interviewed, especially joggers, runners, but also dog walkers, they tend to do the whole loop. The loop within the park is beautiful, but a lot shorter. So that's certainly attractive. But I think part of the attraction of the space is the larger extended trail network. So that's one of the challenges, finding a way to see how that recreational use can continue over time. Wayfinding in the park came up as one of the needs identified. Generally, the signs are beautiful. They're all the wood carved signs and really speak to the community involvement in the park over the years, as does the trail system itself, which is all volunteer built. But yeah, there's some need at key junctions to provide some wayfinding signs, perhaps a post with a park map, to help people orient themselves who might be newer to the park, or as new trails might crop up, find their way around. Yeah, and then another theme was really the volunteer efforts, valuing the volunteer efforts and how support for volunteers could happen. So yeah, so this is the kind of how we came to the implementation actions and timelines. So putting all this into one pot or one formula, trying to determine what's important to the public, what are some of the challenges, opportunities that we can that need to be addressed, so like opportunities in case of opportunities, what can be achieved over the next while, formulate a goal and a vision for goals and a vision for the park. And then that led to the implementation actions and timelines. So the mathematical formula for all this is quite complicated, but I did find it. Sometimes I wish as a social scientist I had formulas, but we don't. Anyway, so goal 1 is sensitive ecosystems. So not surprising, that really came out of the public, the main themes that we heard. And really what that means is, and it's also more of an ongoing effort. There's no one key thing to do right now, while other perhaps some drainage improvements. But it starts with knowing what you have. So more of an inventory, a mapping of rare plants and sensitive ecosystems. I received from the Port Alberni, Alberni Valley, naturalists, a plant list, which was really helpful. I did also add some to that, identified some of the invasive species. So knowing where also those invasive species are, and supporting wildlife habitat, that's kind of the next step, as keeping it natural, which was one of the themes. And then using best management practices. And I think parks departments do this as a matter of course. So drainage improvements, reconstruction, realignment of trail along Kitsaxis Creek might be helpful over time to get have less impact on the floodplain, prevent erosion of trails along steep slopes. So I think that's an ongoing effort that I think it's just part of how you do business. So goal 2 is adequate parking and access from different neighborhoods in the park. And there's a few access points were identified through the process, and I have detailed maps. I'm not going to speak too much to each, but we can go back to those during our discussion. But yes, access via adjacent Crown lands came up as being very important, and partly to take the pressure off the Willow Road parking lot, parking area. At the same time, parking off the end of Willow Road, there was some support for that. The Willow Road residents in particular, were less keen on improving the parking along the road. There was more interest in seeing it moved onto the Holly Road right away, which tees into Willow Road tees into that right away, if that can be done. So there's some feasibility and design challenges there with a lot of little water courses. So that has to be explored how that can happen. But that seemed to be the preferred approach to developing parking. And I should say, some residents prefer just moving to Kitsaxis, don't do anything at Willow Road, and other residents of Willow Road did like the idea of having, because parking will probably, and access from Willow Road will continue, having an improvement at the end of the road onto the onto the right of way or even the Crown land. And then access from Cherry Creek. So I just have some maps, and I said I skip back to those and we can explore those further during the discussion if you wish. So yeah, the challenge is feasibility, collaboration with First Nations in the province and the woodlot tenure holder to the north potentially, but for the Ikitsuxis Trail access, what you would need to do is apply to the province for a Section 56 of 57 permit, or it's under the Forest Range Practices Act, to be able to establish a trail across the Crown lands. And that's recommended prior to developing a parking lot off Kitsuxis Road, because if you develop the parking lot, you spend money on the parking lot, and then a woodlot and some other tenure form is granted over those Crown lands, you might lose the access trails and you've just spent your money on a parking lot, which doesn't have any connectivity to the park. So it is a bit of a process. It requires a permit an application to the province, Recreation Trails BC, but most likely also discussions with the Ministry of Forests. There's consultation with First Nations who may have an interest in those Crown lands. So it's really about collaborating, working together, and seeing what might make the most sense and what could protect some of these other interests or not impinge on some of these other interests. So I think there is some discussions that need to happen before you might even want to decide between 6 and 7. I think 6 is very desirable because there's already trail connections. So if that trail that connects to the park can be legally established in some way, that's great. And it's along a beautiful corridor that you feel, as soon as you enter it, you feel like you're in the park. The Holly Road one is an option that came up. It would go along the road right of way. The challenge with that is you are then also impacting a couple of neighbors who write about that parking area. If you, or you bring traffic down the right of way if you put the parking closer to the Willow Road, and so if you put it and that also carries costs with it, of course. So if it works out that you can do from Kitsuxis further up by the mailboxes, it's obviously more cost effective too, and I think a better trail experience. So best roads, I put these a little bit further out and into the future, and maybe 2025 is ambitious. So these timelines are obviously up for discussion and will be determined through your budgeting process. There's still some feasibility to be done for potential accesses from the north of the park, which would connect another neighborhood to the park, which is great for many reasons as outlined before, just encouraging more walking and cycling to the park where you can. Less people living up there, but nonetheless, it's a nice connection. So the woodlot owner it's going to take a while before he gets to that area, but he was definitely open to having discussions. In fact, he suggested it, that when he puts this logging road in, that in the future that could then be an access to the park, and he was interested in working with the ACID on that. So that's one of the values of these kind of planning processes. You meet the neighbors, you meet the other stakeholders, and hopefully some synergies are created, and you can work together over time to implement some of these great ideas. Did I miss Strathcona? No. Okay, so Willow Road. I might have messed the order up here, but fine. So, and it's a little bit in the shorter term. I think there's still a need to look into parking off the end of Willow Road. As I said, potentially in that Holly Avenue. Sorry, it's not Holly Road, Holly Avenue right away. And you may need to get further into the Crown land, depending what the feasibility determines and the design, how you can negotiate the drainage systems, the small little drainage systems that are in that area. And again, that would require permit applications for the road right away from the Ministry of Transportation. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And then Ministry of Forests or Recreation Trails BC for access, formal access over the Crown land, which that's where the trail is now, partially. So you might want to do that anyways, sooner or later. So yeah, and that brings me to Cherry Creek access. So some initial exploration has happened. So Michael has done a great job trying to get out to all those sites and getting some initial opinions on feasibility, difficulty of access. It's a challenging access because the terrain drops off on that side from Strathcona Road towards Kitsuxis Creek quite dramatically in some areas, a little bit more achievable in others. And then the other challenges is when you cross to the other side, you're in a floodplain of Kitsaxis Creek. So there would be a requirement to apply for a Water Sustainability Act permit working in and around the stream, but also you'd be trying to avoid the floodplain with your design. So this is really desirable from a connectivity perspective, not without its challenges. And I think a bit more feasibility and review is needed prior to assigning potentially a budget to it and going into a design process. So yeah, the third goal, and I'm almost done. Hopefully I don't take too much time here. I am taking a lot of time. First Nations cultural practice, as I said, and presence on the land. We had some initial discussions, especially with the Sishat, and a few things came up, which I think I still need to be more explored and understand their thoughts and ideas a little bit more. The Tonkin Trail came up in Tofino, which has a wonderful interpretive sign program, which tells the history of that particular trail in that area from a First Nations perspective. The other example I put up, and these are just examples, I think it's just ideas. We're generating ideas, and I think the discussions need to continue. It's naming signs with a First Nations name or the park. So goal 4 was just, as I mentioned earlier, connectivity to the larger trail system. So this is just a map that shows where they are. You're more familiar with them than I am, I'm sure. The Cherry Creek trails. And I think that is actually in the wrong place. The Cherry Creek label should be high up. And the Kitsaxis Dike Trail, some key connections, but then also the Crown Land Trail system. So you may have an initial application just to get a direct connection from Kitsaxis Road over to the park, but in the longer term, the recommendation is to explore how you can work with potential future tenure holders or interests in that land, and to retain the recreational access to those lands at the same time. And there's some valuable ecosystems in there. There's some small pockets of Gary Oak. So there's also some ecosystem protection interests, which the Ministry of Forests actually has been working on. All right, so wayfinding was the other goal. And as part of one of the messages we got is people do want the improvement, but still kind of not have amenities dominate in the park and have them blend in with the natural environment. So, and that kind of was also reflected in the open house. We checked in what level of standard they want for service. And it really, so for now, I think a level 3 was preferred, which is a fairly low level of standards, more not as regular, and can be more, could be achieved potentially with volunteers with some support. And Michael's just starting to monitor trail use, and we have some trail data, recent trail data in the report, and that's an ongoing effort and really gives us a good idea of increase in use and where people are coming from too, potentially as you might develop other accesses, the counter can be moved. Posting the maps on 2 key junctions and adding wayfinding signs at all junctions. Yeah, and the final goal is really supporting your volunteers. The community involvement in the park over the years has been wonderful, and that's a real asset and important to keep that. Keep it. The engagement is really great if people have a sense of ownership over the park. You also learn a lot from from folks who are directly involved in the park and trail building projects and ecosystem restoration projects. So that's such a great asset to have, and if it's there and you can continue to build that, that's so valuable. So I think that brings the presentation to an end. So yeah, if you had any questions, want me to skip back to any slide or bring up the plan, I'm happy to do those. So.
All right, thank you, Karen. I think we all have the plan in our materials, so I think we should refer to that unless a map is necessary. Thank you for not sharing anymore, because then I can more easily see people who want to speak. Thank you for your presentation. Does anyone have any comments or questions? All right, Director Bodner and then Director McNabb, please go ahead.
Thank you. I've been over this presentation and it is really well and thoroughly done, and I really appreciate it. This is one of my favorite trails in the valley. What I'd like to know is that you're talking of 2 areas off of Strathcona, which is in the Cherry Creek area. Do they have to cross any other private land? Would the access be just on Crown land?
Yeah, the 2 axes that were shown on that one map are along Ministry of Transportation road right-of-ways that are undeveloped.
But I mean, for parking, if you are going to put in a parking space, I mean, that would take in quite a bit of land. And would that be on Crown land then if it was off of Strathcona?
So there's no, on that side, it would just be Ministry of Transportation right away. And I believe it's a standard road width. So that's 20 meters wide. So you may be able to fit a few parking spaces, perhaps angle parking or parallel parking in along that right of way. So there's no, and then you ride it, and the road right of way ends right at the park boundary. So then you're right in the park. So there's no need to cross Crown land. So it's just a permit from Ministry of Transportation and checking into the feasibility and where once you at the end of the road right away, you can cross into the park, and you'd have to cross the creek.
Yes, it's just I've driven up and down Strathcona Road, and to me it seems very narrow, a little bit wider on one side than the other. So you might end up with more problems like Willow Road is having. I don't know, it just from what I could see. And the other thing I wanted to ask is, how long would it take to hear from the province, and what can be done in the meantime?
Yeah, the process of the province of the Recreation Trails BC, we did have a check-in with them, and they're quite busy. So it could take, it could take a year. That's what they told me. So I don't know where they're at right now. But then there's also a requirement for consultation with First Nations because it's Crown land, and that could also take a little bit of time. I think then perhaps would it be helpful to have some informal discussions with the different parties that might be involved as part of that permit application, or as that permit application proceeds, to try and see if there's some common ground that can be gained, some common interests.
Thank you. And the last question is, in the meantime, is something going to be done as a Band-Aid or whatever for Willow Road? Because now that there's even been a survey on it and more publicized, we could end up with a lot more traffic down there this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the plan does suggest exploration of the feasibility of a parking lot at the end of Willow Road, at the end into the Crown land. That seemed to be preferred over trying to improve the parking along the road itself. So that is one of the priorities. And yeah, it would relieve the congestion along the road. And the outcome of a success access is uncertain. I think collaboration is probably your key there, to see if you can find some common interests, and hopefully that can happen around the same time. But yeah, I would probably not put my eggs in just one basket. So I think working on the Willow Road end is important as well. But
okay.
Yeah, timing is, I think once this planning process, Michael did some exploration right concurrently, which is great and really helped the process and helped us understand some of the challenges. And I see he's turned on his video, so I'm sure he wants to speak to that.
Hey, Michael, go ahead. And then Diane, if you have a follow-up, then we'll go to Director McNabb. Thanks.
Yeah, I will add that, we've done some work on, trying to get a few of the, capital projects shovel ready. Previously we've allocated $250,000 in community works funds to addressing some capital projects for maybe our Spark access. So with the final plan, which will be brought to the board this summer, we'll also bring a staff report with, recommendations, staff recommendations for short-term, medium-term projects that we'd be able to jump on. But at the moment, there isn't a staff recommendation for starting capital projects. So shortly.
Thank you. Diane, did you have any follow-up? Okay, Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So, I think the focus really has to be that this is actually not a regional park. It's a Cherry Creek Park, and that with the budget is the budget. And the initial impetus to do this was that the parking problems that exist on Willow. So, I mean, I don't want to enter into something that's going to be remove that focus and deal with issues that exist within the park itself without initially fixing the problem that we started out to fix, which is the parking. So I don't know as its focus of that. I want to be sure that that's where our main thrust is going ahead to fix that problem and doing it as quickly as we can, and then having access to a park that's Cherry Creek's park, and the folks of Cherry Creek can decide its future and its development and all of the rest of it. So the one thing that I would like to make absolutely sure is that Hepetchet and Tishat are equally involved in conversation. This particular area is more likely to have been occupied at some point by Hepetchet than it is by Tishat. And although Tishat was offered this particular piece of the Crown land as part of the land claim settlement years back, and I don't know where that stands, or at the time it seemed that they rejected it, but it's territory that they both have an interest in, and they both need to be equally consulted about. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Well said. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. Well,
Just,
go ahead.
I've got one question with regards to Holly Avenue. It appears on the map that's the old map that's in here that Holly Avenue was consistent road width from start to finish. It appears on our maps that Holly Avenue goes from the 20 meter down to about 2 meters. And I don't know why that is. I'm not quite sure anybody does.
Okay, yeah, we can check into that. I recall seeing a map where it narrows down towards as you get closer to Willow Road. So we'll confirm that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Does anyone else have any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Karen, thank you. Yeah, great presentation. Okay, so that brings us into item 5 of the agenda, which is a request for decision regarding the Park Services Annual Report. I'm assuming that Mike, you're the guy. So yeah, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. And yeah, looking forward to speaking about a few park initiatives that we can go over, starting with the annual services report. I do have a PowerPoint here that I'm going to share. Okay, is that in full screen for everyone?
Yes, we're all good.
Excellent. Thank you. So this is the first annual report that the Park Services put together. And, you know, we kind of looked at this from a zoomed out view of all of our park services, and we kind of look back at some of the planning, such as the strategic plan, the asset management plan that have been done in the last 10 years or so. And we want to provide kind of an overview about, you know, what goals and mission the park services have, and then how are we kind of assessing ourselves in, you know, our ability to achieve those goals. So what are the measurables that we're tracking, and, you know, so that we know that we're able to do a better job and see if we need to shift focus or shift resources to better achieve kind of our objectives. And first, I want to start by kind of differentiating between the regional parks versus community parks. I think most of the public has an understanding or a view that, you know, if you're in an ACRD park, you know, they all kind of consider them to be one and the same. But there is a difference between, you know, from an operational standpoint about what we're trying to achieve with each park and each park services. So first off would be, you know, a regional park is more focused on, you know, outdoor recreation needs of the region, you know, regionally unique features, and then also, you know, having a role in attracting tourism. While a community park would generally be focused on just local outdoor recreation and promoting the sense of the community within that area. So designed to serve nearby residents and funded by the individual electoral areas that they're located in. So pulling out of the asset management plan that was done last year, as well as our GIS program, you know, we've begun to collect this data and break it down between our park services. I'm not going to dive too deep into these numbers, but, you know, we will continue to collect this data and show trends one way or the other in subsequent annual reports. So we pulled this mission statement from the 2015 strategic plan for regional parks. The ACRD will work with all citizens to be good stewards of our environment and to provide safe and welcoming opportunities to play, learn, contemplate, and build community. That's a statement that we feel describes every action that we take in the operations and management of our park services. Also, that strategic plan, it had 7 strategic plan goals that were great for strategic goals, but we felt that they weren't great, applicable operational goals from the view of, you know, measuring and tracking our success as an operations group. So we came up with these, and there's a lot of overlap between those goals, those strategic plan goals and these, but and we'll dive into each individually here. So the first one was operations and service levels. Last year, we took the levels of service report to the board, if you all recall, and established a level of service for each of our parks. So the statement for this goal is park and trail user experience meets the needs and expectations of the community/park shed. We began collecting trail use data, as Karen mentioned, at Maplehurst Park this year with the number of trail counters. We had collected some in years past, but it wasn't really a formal system and it was more set up short term. Now we have some software to amalgamate that data, and it collects it in real time, so hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, and then we can spit out some great graphs. We can compare trends, compare which parks are being used the most, and then we're also going to collect some survey data, such as we did at the Maplehurst Park survey, which you see on the pie chart there. And that's kind of tracking, you know, what are you doing when you're visiting parks? What's your main use? And then also collecting some more satisfaction scores, such as, you know, are you happy with the trail quality, with your experience, with the amenities on site? Just giving the community like an option to, or an opportunity to have their voice in what service level they're seeing. So I wanted to bring up one thing that we touched base on, that level of service report from last year, just because it's an important concept in our operations world. And that's customer level of service. That measures how the customer receives the service and measure of value that we provide, which is a different measurement than technical level of service. So that measures the performance relating to the allocation of resources to service activities to best achieve the desired outcomes and demonstrate effective performance. So that's utilizing, you know, tracking funds spent and resources allocated, and how that's influencing our level of service, as opposed to, you know, the experience that a park user would have.
Michael, one moment. It looks
Yep.
like Dr. Cote has a question. Sorry, I had the screens all squished. Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
If I can, if you would rather that we wait for questions at the end, but
No, that's fine.
okay, thank you. So I have a couple questions. You keep saying we, and I can't recall where the mission statement came from. And also, you're talking about collecting data, and I'm wondering how you're going to do that. It says staff, so staff are not going to be out there with surveys, I'm sure. So I'd just like some more information on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I do say we, and, I realize that I am kind of a one-man show in our parks department, but, we work as a community services, regional districts, we need to lean on each other and, help each other out from time to time. So, I generally work with Jenny to develop these initiatives and plans. But, sometimes we do get help from other people and other resources too, like Eddie and Paulo and whatnot, and then I help out there too. So it is a team effort. And then also for your second question about, how we're collecting our data, it is just using the tools available to us, like trail counters, like Let's Connect, more general survey work, just again, having our contact information on signage within parks, being available for public comment, participating in parks commissions and, being available for other park user groups, and just kind of collecting data information that way and compiling it to be represented in this report. I think that answered your questions. Is that right?
Just the mission statement. So I don't recall
Yes.
where it came from.
Okay, so in the 2015 Park Strategic Plan, that was the mission statement that was adopted with that plan, and we felt it suited the current park strategic or mission at this time too.
Great, thank you.
So our next goal was surrounding acquisition, and our one-line sentence about that is to represent and protect an array of regionally significant natural and cultural areas. Now, we get a lot of proposals from the public, from developers or planning subdivision initiatives to take on different park assets and whatnot, which, we're speaking about 2 proposals later today. But formally, we haven't really identified and amalgamated, what criteria we're trying to achieve while we do park acquisition. So, each OCP has, identified goals and policy in regards to acquisition. And then also in the 2015 strategic plan that we mentioned, they listed these 4 general acquisition criteria. But I think a lot of our initiatives kind of fall into these 4 criteria. So I think just kind of diving deeper into what values and assets, we consider to be, desirable parkland through a parkland acquisition policy would really have a lot of help and guidance for staff and the board, future boards about, what we're looking for when we're acquiring parkland. And again, we measure how successful we are in that by, reporting on, what we were able to acquire throughout the year or what we decided not to acquire through annual reports. Our next goal is revolved around infrastructure. So our one-liner about that was build and maintain infrastructure to ensure safety and environmental sustainability. And, last year we took the parks inspection and maintenance policy to the board for adoption, and that kind of outlined, the standard of inspection and maintenance that we would require to perform on our parks assets. And then I pulled this graph through our asset management policy that was, or not policy, plan that was presented last year. So that did a lot of great work for our infrastructure and asset management within our park services. But I wanted to also include this wheel here, and it's our BC asset management wheel. So last year we created the plan. This year we're in this area where we're implementing it. But I'd like to just draw the attention that we're always within the wheel of asset management. There's no getting off the wheel. So different assets are located in different locations. But we're always, trying to turn the wheel and work on one aspect or another. So we would measure that by ensuring that, all of our new asset and infrastructure meets these adopted standards. We have a target of 0 safety incidents. Right now we're hitting that target, but we're also not receiving any complaints or concerns. So I think we need to improve our communication with the public so that, we're expecting that if there is a safety incident within one of our parks, that we hear about it and we're able to record it and track it. And then also our asset management, capital contribution needs to meet the required levels within our budget plan. Our next one is positive impact. So the one-liner for that was improve quality of life, promote healthy lifestyles, contribute to the economic and environmental well-being of the community and region. Now in the strategic plan, this started out as purely an economic value goal, and that's kind of where it started in this report as well. But after diving a little bit deeper into it, we felt that adding other values beyond economic value was important to highlight, such as health and environmental benefits, social importance. Parks just really do so much that really isn't accounted for. So this is an effort to really account for more of the value that it provides to the community. And we do account that through our trail use trends, our data collection program, tracking tourists utilizing our parks and trails, creating a better understanding about what values that our parks are bringing to the community. And lastly, through community engagement, the one-liner for that is engage the community to provide an opportunity for full participation to guide the development of the parks and trails, build community, volunteerism, and increase awareness. As I mentioned at most of my reports, the ACRD parks were really built by the community, and we have these parks through their initiative. For the most part, they brought it to where it is today. We have some fantastic, assets and parks in this area, and the ACRD as an organization, our goal is to make sure that they're utilizing their volunteerism and time efficiently, that they feel that they have a say when they are spending their volunteerism time within parks. They have a say in where the services goes and how they're operated. So, reaching out to our established volunteers within our parks commissions and our local community groups, and making sure that we create good relationships and have good partnerships and are able to support them for the initiatives that they want to bring forward is important. And then we'll also use local engagement tools to reach those people that aren't affiliated with local groups, like Let's Connect.ca, signage within parks with our contact information, so that staff are available with open ears to have discussions about the park services and any initiatives that the public wants to bring forward, or any complaints that they want to bring forward too. So just tracking those conversations and collecting the data where we see fit. And this is an example of the survey from the Maple Arch Park Management Plan, collecting where people live, that filled out the survey, and we're big proponents of the park. This is just a outline of the projects, all completed in the last year, this year's projects and future projects. This graph has the multi-service, so these projects kind of apply to each of the park services, and they're more policy initiatives that spread benefit throughout the services here. And then this one is a breakdown between each service. These are more infrastructure projects and initiatives that each of the services can have gone through. We're not going to dive too deep into this right now, but if we want to have some questions about it in a bit, that's good. I would like to comment that this is the first plan, so we tried to keep it concise and touch all of our bases. I think there's a lot of other initiatives that larger cities and regional districts pursue that weren't included here. like environmental protection, more discussions about inclusivity and accessibility goals, governance initiatives that we didn't really dive too deep into on this report. But if they're priorities for you, then we'll look at adding them into subsequent reports. So, are there any other questions or comments on this? And I can quit sharing my screen here.
Thanks. Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. McGregor. Is there any will to create a regional district commission, Parks Commission? We didn't really talk a lot about the separation of local parks and the regional district parks. So in the past, we've been trying to move forward on creating more regional parks, or I have been anyways, and I know that the community has. I don't know about the other directors, I can't speak for them, but just wondering where we're at going forward with looking at the creation of more regional parks. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think that Great Central Lake boat launch, which doesn't have park designation, but that to me is a regional asset rather than a local one. Anyways, I'll leave that with you. Thanks.
Michael, maybe I can jump in just a little bit on this one. I know with talking with Terry and with a lot of the group here at the ACRD, we have been discussing, and I appreciate you bringing it up, Director Cote, about the governance and where do some parks fit. Michael brought up the concept of what is a community park versus a regional park and those definitions. So I know we have a couple. There's also the discussion when it comes to just regional parks in general. And one of the outstanding issues has been the multi-use pathway and that portion. And so looking at fair and equitable funding for regional parks, which parks are included. Now, we have this project, we've sort of titled it Parks Governance Issues that we are working on. And I think when we talk about Great Central Lake, we know that one is one of those, and we do want to look at it. We've been trying and we're hopeful that we could basically get the MUP done. And then that would help us with the conversation because it has a big factor in how we proportion costs for regional parks. And I'm still very optimistic that we will get news and that will be a factor. But I think if it doesn't move forward, we are looking to bring that back to this group to talk about. But it's definitely a big administration issue. So we've got Wendy Thompson and Terry, and because it's a lot of finance working on that. So we hope to come back with you to this group, hopefully by the end of the year, at least with an update on where we are with that, and hopefully also information on the MUP project, because then that'll have an impact. I hope that answers that question.
Sort of, and not. Just wondering, I guess what I wanted to hear is that you are working on the development of a regional parks service and including things into it that aren't really a local benefit, more of a regional benefit. Thanks.
Okay. So with that, Michael, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to add that, when you mentioned the creation of a regional parks commission, I think our parks commissions that we have in Banfield and Sprout Lake, they do a great job in providing the connection to the community and providing guidance from the community for these services. So yeah, if we can have a regional or parks commission for each of our services, I think they provide great value. And we're always open to adding that. At the moment, we don't have the volunteerism in place or, members associated that are like driving the bus behind the creation of that commission. But it's something that's on the table, and if we are able to create one, we definitely will. If we're able to create one in any of our park service, we definitely will.
Any Director McNabb, go ahead.
So I would like to move that the Alberni Claycraft Regional District Committee, the whole, accept the report.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Johnson. Any further comments?
Can I make a, could I make a quick comment?
Oh, please go ahead.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Michael and the team around him, as he already indicated. He is a bit of a one-man show, but he does lean on other aspects and other areas of the organization. It's not easy coming out with a first, and especially a first that bears in mind the other elements that the organization is working on, such as asset management, former park plans, and the direction that we need to move in as we see more people moving into the region. There's requests for those additional services, and setting up a foundation that allows us to monitor statistics and pay attention to how things are used does feed into those questions that Director Cote was bringing up and helps us make informed decisions as to what direction to go into. So I just want to give him a shout out because it's a lot of work. And I think it's an important first step that sets up long-term discussions around parks. So thank you.
Okay, with that, I think that's it. No further comments. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Okay, so the next item we have on the agenda now is the Alberni Inlet Trail expansion. Looks like we have a report, a request for decision. Michael, please go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. So last year we received a number of correspondence from local community groups urging the ACRD to investigate the addition of stage 3 for the Alberni Inlet Trail, which involves the construction of a pedestrian bridge across Franklin River, as well as the extension of an agreement with Mosaic, and there would also be a Crown land section that would require an agreement if we were to add that. At that time, the board provided a recommendation to investigate in some feasibility and concept ideas for the addition. We were able to secure an infrastructure grant from the province for $10,000, and we hired Herald Engineering to do a site review. Part of their scope was to assess the collapsed structure on Franklin River that was once used as, I think it was a logging bridge at one point and then a pedestrian bridge after that, but it's no longer usable, and see if it, if it had any redeeming factors, and then also come up with a couple feasibility designs and concept designs for structures that could be used for pedestrian crossing in this location. I attached that feasibility report to this report, and it did come up with 3 potential structures and Class D cost estimates associated with those structures. And then I'd like to just point out that this is still a feasibility stage. So I think the next step, we know that there's, due to the geography and fluvial components and stuff, we have a feasible structure that can work there. We have identified, potential costs associated with that. We've had some initial conversations with Mosaic about, their willingness to engage in extension for that agreement. The next step would be to assess the budget feasibility. Currently, the staff recommendation is, we don't have identified funds for it. So I think sharing this with some of the impacted community groups that would like to see this project go forward, and working with them to kind of create more ideas and have them search for some grants that may be looked at, and then we can continue, having those conversations within the community to see this park move forward. But there's no current next steps that we're able to pursue unless we make it a priority and direct staff to spend staff time to develop a budget proposal.
All right, thank you. Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So in my mind, this is a regional park, the priority level is substantially higher than our other discussions here. And the logic of this bridge it needs to be considered. Who's going to use it? How are they going to use it? And we need to make plans and steps to carry this forward and find the funding that needs to be found for the level of structure we need. You know, looking at it myself, I mean, I've been down that trail when it's drivable, but I haven't been down it when it's walkable. So the idea of the suspension bridge or the fixed bridge is really the only solution, because I don't know when the last time you tried to get a dog inside of one of those carts to go across, or 3 bicycles or whatever, even a child that's afraid of heights. I just think it's a no starter. But so the other two options are really, in my mind, the pursuit, and we need to get engaged and look for funding to make this happen, because it's the glue that's going to keep this all together. So it is regional, you know, it is part of the plan, and we need to move the ball forward. Thank you.
Director Baldner, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I did receive a concern from, I guess it's Harold and Judy Carlson, and they were concerned about the feasibility study, saying that it seems very hypothetical. They don't say what type of bridge is going to go in there and what the cost is going to be, and they really want to see this project to stay alive. I did send a copy of that email to all the directors. So I just wanted to bring that up, that I received that information this morning.
Any further comments or questions regarding the inlet trail? Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So, I mean, I really think we need to put something in motion here. I just don't think we need to leave it on the table and look for something down the line. You know, the motion that I would like to see is that we actually look for opportunities, or direct staff to look for opportunities to get either one of these two top options in process. And I mean, I think $1.3 million is a lot to spend. Well, any of it's a lot to spend, but in the economy of scale and the importance of this connection, it's important. And so I think at the end of this conversation, we need to look at a motion that will move it forward versus one that just leaves it on the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Cote, and then Daniel.
Thank you. I would agree with Director McNabb. I too did get an email from the Carlsons, and the inlet trail has been on the go now for quite a few years, and the continuing development and the support from the community to have this this trail go forward. So I'm wondering if there's opportunity for federal grant or historic type grant or transportation grant that would help to assist this, but I'd really like to see it brought forward definitely for our next budget session, at least for next year, and possibly if we could find a grant in the meantime, that would be great. And I think we have it. Did we get a $10,000 grant to look at this study, to study more? Or sorry, I'm gapping out here. Thanks.
All right, Daniel, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I do believe we received the $10,000 grant to do the feasibility work that's being done. The next step, what I would recommend based on the comments is the second of the options that's identified at the bottom of the report on page 24. And that's that the Alberni-Toyoquit Regional District Committee of the Whole recommend to the Board of Directors to direct staff to consider the Franklin Bridge project when appropriate grants become available. I just so you know, last week I was at LGMA, the Local Government Management Association, which is attended by my provincial counterparts as well. And so we did receive indication that there's going to be another round of infrastructure grants targeting trails and alternative transportation. So we should expect to see something coming soon. So I think that that resolution would be appropriate given what's on the horizon, and hopefully if the timing's right, we'll be ready for budget discussions along those lines.
Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So I would move option 2, but deleting, I'm sorry, I don't have the report, but deleting the cable car portion. Forget that.
Do we have a seconder? Director Roberts, is that a second? Yep. And do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. And I agree with Director McNabb. I think as far as accessibility is concerned, when I look at the descriptions, from my experience in both of the number 2 and number 3, I would suggest that number 1, the steel truss bridge would probably be the most effective way to go. And again, depending on availability of funds and grants. So, and I do support it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, that brings us to the final item, which is the hole in the wall update. I think it's you again, Michael, so please go ahead.
Yeah, this is me again. So on June 17th, Director Bodner and myself represented the ACRD at a stakeholder meeting regarding the hole in the wall attraction. This meeting was organized by MLA Josie Osborne, just bringing together stakeholders. So representatives there were Tishat, First Nation, Modi, Mosaic Forest Management, the Port Alberni Chamber of Commerce, and the Black Powder Club. We went over a number of initiatives and ideas and whatnot, but in general, what came out of the meeting was, there was a group consensus that the current access wasn't safe, and there needs to be some actions to address the public safety risk. We all agreed that at this time, no formal promotion of the trail should occur, and then also Modi was committed to doing a signage review and an engineering review within the next couple months to come back with some initiatives. I should say that the impacted landowners, Modi and Mosaic, they don't generally dedicate resources to developing these attractions independently, but they did both express a willingness to collaborate within a group and have further discussions to develop a long-term plan. So I'd say that there are a couple opportunities to look into. Right now, there's no clear, easy solution for addressing it. One of the things that I'd like this group to contemplate is what's ACRD's role in creating this plan, and beyond that, what's the future ACRD's role in, does it belong within one of our parks services, such as regional parks, or do we see us having a separate role?
Director Bodner and then Director McNabb, please go ahead.
Thank you. This is is a tough one because the hole in the wall was not something that was planned. Somebody put it on the internet and it just blossomed. And out of that, one of the most prioritizing thing is safety. And it becomes complex because so many people are involved. Private land, city, mosaic, the highways. And we already have, and it's not even a natural phenomenon. It was a water pipe that was desecrated, and the hole just got bigger with the water. So safety definitely is something I think that we have to look into. And I really feel we have put so much money, cost, effort, and time into Maplehurst, which is another safety issue there regarding traffic. And it seems to be more ongoing. And something the wheels are starting to turn there. And I just like to know who is to take priority over this safety factor. I would think it would be Moti and Mosaic. However, they need to be able to piggyback what their the suggestions are regarding land. And I don't really know what our priority should be as making it a regional park, when we have other things that are on the go right now. And Michael is not, even though he does some wonderful work, he's not God, and he can only spread himself so thin. So I really feel that it shouldn't be a priority right now. And perhaps when we get some more information as to cost and longevity of developing such a thing, that it just not take high priority. Finish what we've already started already in parks.
Thank you for that. Dr. McNabb?
So my concern about this whole thing is liability. Where the trails are a liability, the feature itself is a liability. It's a shell structure that nobody has assessed for its overall safety and what's going to happen next there. I agree that the parking situation is highly problematic. And, my suggestion is that we look to create a parking area on the road that goes to the gun club, whoever owns that down there or leases it or whatever, and call it Walk the Hump or Bicycle the Hump parking lot area. Where people go from there is not our problem, it's theirs. So, that could be done in concert with highways, and but I don't see us biting off a park in a hole in the wall, regional community park or any other. I think it's within our skill sets probably, but I don't think it's quite within our mandate. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Director Minions, go ahead.
Thank you. Appreciate Director Bodner's comments around, we didn't look to create this park. However, I think that often priorities are not necessarily driven by us, but driven by public desire, and whether we set out to create it or not, and whether we set out to, prioritize it or not. I think that this park is, I would say, one of our current greatest draws as a valley. So, it's not a park, I get that. And I certainly share Director McNabb's comments and concerns around liability. But I think that we should be prioritizing a solution because the risk is there, the risk exists. And I think in reality, we take on a lot more risk if we ignore it because we didn't decide to take it on. So I don't think that kind of as a board saying, well, it's not really our issue and because we didn't ask for it is really acceptable. I think that it's a community and regional benefit, and it's something that people are using whether we like it or not. So I like Director McNabb's idea around creating, like working with another stakeholder to create access somewhere else and maybe not intentionally promoting it, maybe not intentionally calling it hole in the wall parking lot or trail. But I do feel strongly that we need to take on a solution because the risk is there and the risk is growing all the time as it becomes more and more popular. And I think we need to prioritize work on this. Thank you.
Thanks. I have Director Shannon next, and then Director Bodner.
Thank you. I just have a question, and this might be too far out of the box, but we're talking about just with hole in the wall and it being the tourist attraction that it is. We're talking about an MRDT tax coming in the next year or so with the tourism. Is there an opportunity to work with the province or whoever administers that tax to help with attractions locally that, like this one, are a park but not really a park, and it is promoted so much by tourism?
Okay. Director Bodner, and then Director McNabb, and then Director Minions.
Thank you. Just recently, Mosaic has opened the gate and have let the on the weekends, because they wanted to get more of that wood, anybody wanting to buy wood. There's quite an abundance up there, so they're leaving the gate open on the weekends. And that does make a difference to the parking up at the top of that area. People still park down on the corner of the highway, but it really does help on the weekends for going down to the Black Powder Club.
Okay. Thank you for that. I have Directors McNabb, then Director Minions.
So the MRT tax is designed for advertising, not for, I mean, it's advertising promotion, but it definitely isn't infrastructure or capital. So it wouldn't be effective for this. But, you know, the more I think about it, the opportunity to create just a gravel parking lot in that area that's at the top and off the road. I mean, I think that likely could be something that we could find some opportunity to partner with highways or Mosaic or all of them, and you know, just get some fill. There's always fill running around the community, and make an area there that's safer, but don't sign it, no signage. I mean, the liability issue of doing nothing in my mind is, well, it's a risk. I mean, it's a risk for an incident happening, but I don't think it's a risk. And I guess it's something our legal advice would give us a comment on. I mean, it's not a park. It's not our property. And the risk associated with that is pretty real, but I don't think it involves the regional district, quite frankly. I mean, it's a social risk, but it's property and land and a feature that is out of our control. So, but if we can be a catalyst to have the risk mitigated without creating more risk, then or creating more liability, then I'm good with that. So my suggestion is that we have staff look at that opportunity to create some off-road parking there that is not directly associated with the hole in the wall, and therefore keeps us out of the rest of the scope of creating a park and all of the things that go along with that. Part of it is even timeline. I mean, trying to get my bridge in Evergreen Park is that formula that was put up there before that's kind of associated with doing these things. It takes time, it takes effort. Every time you turn around, there's a block that's slowing it down. So keeping it simple is really important. And if we can do that and get to the end of the road without reinventing the wheel or creating a lot of work where we don't need to create work, great. So my suggestion, and I would move it, that we have staff investigate the opportunity to create a large parking area on the right-hand side of the road exiting Port Alberni. And we can probably find a way to help with that financially. Would be creative, but not inclusive. So
I'll second that, but only if all those words make it into the motion.
Well, but I'm sure that Janice is sitting there, just pencil is just burning, and she has a motion there. Thanks.
So with that, we'll just pause for a second. So it isn't the motion that's the recommended one, but it's specific to a on the right-hand side going up the hill investigation specific to
so,
that.
I mean, Diane could help us. She belongs to that association. What is that road called? Where people are parking?
We just call it the top of Mosaic's road, logging road that goes in there, but where people are parking when they open the gate is a huge area. There's lots of area there to park. It would have to be sectioned off so that people know to parking or something, so they don't block the road that goes down to the end of where the shooting range is.
Yeah, that's where the black powder guys, they park there a lot too, right?
And they park way down. It's a 10-minute drive down there. But
okay, so I saw some of them park up like right by the highway and walk down too.
yeah,
I don't know.
it's a couple of hundred yards down from the highway. There's a huge, big open area for parking.
Yeah. Okay. I park near the highway there when I do phone calls. Okay, thank you for the clarification. So we have a seconder on that wording. Director Minions, you are next, and then Director Cote, and then Director Roberts.
Thank you. Just following up on Director Shannon's comments around the MRDT, one thing I thought was important to note, additional to the information that was provided by Director McNabb, is that while it is approved by the hoteliers, so enough votes have been submitted, actually more than enough to bring that forward, it is not approved by the province yet. And it's actually being held right now because they're going to be asking they would like matching, or maybe not matching, but some kind of ongoing financial contribution by local government. So they're planning to come to the city and ask for the city to make that contribution. And I want to put a little plug out there, as we're in, a conversation today about regional parks, that tourism is a regional initiative, not just a city initiative. And I think it deserves a conversation around economic development, whether it should be just the city contributing to the municipal regional district tax, or if it should be the whole Alberni Valley portion of us. So anyways, not for today. I know that we have had some really good conversations around economic development lately. And I just think that tourism is an important piece of that. So when that does start, hopefully, and it is probably about a year or so out, we are looking at about $200,000 brought into the valley from the hotel portion of it, from that tourists will pay, and then whatever local governments end up topping up. But that has a really clear business plan of how it is able to be used. I know that we, like the chamber the other day, had a board member ask, could it be used for some of their operations or could it be used for some of this? And it is really specific because that's what the hotels approved. So
Yeah.
it won't be kind of just money out there to use at anyone's discretion, which is probably a good thing. They've got a business plan and we'll be working with that. So probably more conversation in the future about how local government and who could contribute to that on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
Yeah, just to supplement that, I do think that if we provide for tourism-based amenities, then that's actually providing for livability amenities, and that can be a compelling reason for doctors to come or stay, especially when we're talking about that sort of thing as well. Next up, I have Directors Cote and then Roberts, and then I see Mike, and we'll put you after Director Roberts.
Thank you. So I see in this report, there's comments here that say that the ACRD could also apply for an infrastructure planning grant with the intention to hire a consultant and produce a concept plan for improving parking and access. And I would like to see that happen prior to jumping in. I'd like to see a plan. I don't really think that our staff should be labored with trying to produce a plan for this, seeing as it is not a sanctioned park. So I don't know if the motion could be amended or if it should be defeated and something like this come forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Director Roberts. And then before we go to Mike, maybe go back to Director McNabb for his thoughts on that. So Director Roberts, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. My concern as a regional director is that once you sort of muddy the waters with regional district monies being implemented into it, are we taking on more than is actually necessary, considering as this is all private land? And what we have, and while I appreciate Director Minion's comments about this place being as a tourist destination, I find it really difficult to believe. I mean, for community members in the community that know of it, they go down there for sure. But water flowing out of a pipe, to me, wouldn't be a major interest for visitors coming to this community. Anyway, and I appreciate Director McNabb's comments, and I think that there may be an opportunity there for that, and I'll leave it at that. I think there's enough said. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Roberts. I have Director McNabb for your thoughts on what Director Cote had suggested.
Well, I mean, I think if staff can utilize that to get the job done, fine. And I would, amend my motion to include that. But I think that the solution is smaller than that. I think I don't think either highways or Mosaic is going to need a study to create what we need to create there. So just the smaller we keep it and the less complicated we keep it, the better off we are. Just direct them to that other area, put a big P sign up there. Everybody from Vancouver understands what a big P means. So I mean, I drive a lot back and forth there. I can see that the volume of people going to see that anomaly is huge. And whether or not it's natural or unnatural, it doesn't seem to deter them from walking half a mile down there to have a look at it. You know, when I went down there 20 years ago, it was there, and it was a good camera opportunity, but it's still, it is what it is. And because of social media, it's drawn a lot more attention. I don't think the attention is going to go away. So, I mean, hopefully maybe Michael's got some comment around that, but certainly if we want to include the opportunity to use that funding, if it's there or needed, great, let's do it.
Okay. Thank you for the comment. Mike, you've been patient. Thank you for waiting. Please go ahead. You are muted though.
Thank you. So just bringing this conversation back to that June 17th stakeholder meeting, a number of these ideas and initiatives were discussed at that meeting and different locations for parking. But I think the general consensus of the group was that we need to get together again to really settle on one initiative that the group can support. So maybe at this moment, focusing on the decided initiative of the Mosaic Road might tie us in a resolution that we would maybe need a little bit more flexibility if the stakeholder group goes in a different direction. I think what was requested out of the ACRD at that meeting was, they need a group to organize the stakeholders because, the Ministry of Transportation, Mosaic, they weren't the ones to lead that group. I think if we could dedicate staff time to leading a stakeholder group to create the long-term plan, that might be enough at the moment. And from what I've heard from this discussion is that, I think that there is, a willingness within this group to dedicate staff time to this issue. So it's just an idea, a proposal, but I'll let you discuss.
Okay, so if there aren't any further comments, I think what I'd like to do is maybe check with staff to see if our discussion can kind of guide what the motion should look like. And if that's okay, then I think we can probably move on. It's kind of understood what our conversation has kind of entailed and what we should focus on, then that should be all right. I don't know who to check with, but please go ahead. There we go.
Maybe I suggest a motion and I'll put that on the table and see if that's sort of in line with what we're looking at here. So that the Alberta Clough Regional District Committee of the Whole direct staff to investigate ACRD cost and time requirements. So it's starting with the original recommended resolution. In looking at public access options for the hole in the wall, and report back to the next scheduled committee of the whole. And further, that we apply for an infrastructure planning grant for this project.
I think I just remuted myself. Directors Cote and then Director McNabb, please let me know. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I have concerns moving forward with this because of my position with Municipal Insurance Association. Communities have been in trouble because of access to unsafe areas. So if we start providing access via a parking lot and actually acknowledging this, I'm afraid of our liability going forward, that because we're not looking after the trail to hole in the wall and making sure that it's a safe place to go, when we're starting to provide parking lots for this. One of the incidents was where a community was sued because of access on a lake to another area that wasn't part of their jurisdiction even. So that's why I'm saying that we really need to look at through a consultant's eyes or whatever to make sure that we're not liable for creating this. And I would love to have a parking lot there. Don't get me wrong. But when we start down this road, we're going to have to go down this road all the way. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's a conversation we can have after an investigation as well. This isn't committing us to even building a parking lot. We're investigating costs and time. So I think I would put a pin on that comment and maybe put it in the dialogue parking lot, because I think it is something that we do need to seriously look at. That may be something that is recommended out of this investigation, or it might be something that we can determine with just a desktop study. So thanks for that. Director McNabb, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the encouraging Mosaic and the highways to actually create a parking area, like a safe parking area off the highway um, for wherever these people want to go. I mean, they could be walking down to the Black Powder place or camping in the bush or whatever. But I don't want to tie the two together. And I think that that's maybe where the situation is. And maybe that's what we need to do is look at that liability situation within the MIA and come back with that because it needs to happen. If highways and Mosaic, it comes off the highway, it's onto Mosaic property. It's not regional district property. It's not regional district responsibility. But we need to provide a safe, or at least encourage safe a parking area wherever these people want to hike. And because what's happening right now is not safe. And I mean, I see families with kids and dogs running across from Cook County area where there is a little bit of parking. And I mean, the traffic is at 80 kilometers an hour right there. And an incident's going to happen. You know, whether it's our responsibility, not our responsibility, it's still going to be an incident. So I'd certainly like to see us move forward with some investigation and some consultation. So I don't know what that looks like, but I don't buy us taking on the hole in wall as a park.
Okay, I think we're getting into positions ahead of where we need to go at the moment. We'll go with Dr. Corbeil next, and then we're going to talk about the motion.
Just to agree with John, there's another reason people are parking up in that area, and that's to go to that Stokes Falls. So there's all kinds of times when there's people parked all over the place. Whether or not it's our liability, there certainly is a risk. And as John pointed out, I've come around that corner on a number of occasions when you see people running across from the candy store, and sooner or later, somebody's going to get seriously injured there. So I think to investigate an opportunity for the ministry and Mosaic to at least widen out a parking lot, it does a number of things, whether it's for just the hole in the wall, the Black Powder, or Stokes Falls. Something needs to be done up in that area and to prevent people from crossing a busy highway. Thank you.
Yeah, someone's going to be running across, drop something, try to grab it, and then get smacked. Or somebody's going to try to swerve and avoid them and go into the ditch or go into oncoming. It's not good as it is now. So we do need to investigate something. So on the topic of just investigating things, maybe we pull the motion back, but make sure that staff understand that it's informed by the conversation we're having, and go something to that staff just coordinate discussions with interested parties on examining options for establishing safe access. Rather than something specific at the moment, there may be something other situation that can absolve us of liability, as well as kind of look at the real safety concerns and mount that balance. I do think that the solution is probably parking on the right side going up the hill. But I don't know if we're not thinking of something more obvious or something that Modi might suggest as well. I don't want to horn in on what you had moved, Director McNabb, but I think it's more about just looking at options, but kind of staying away from some of the more Cadillac options, I think. Director McNabb?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's, what you just said initially in the short form of that is exactly where I want to head with it. Let's do what we have to do to get that motion worded that way and seconded it and get on with our life.
Okay, so what I said is something that is, I can type out, but hopefully somebody can just, it's that staff coordinate discussions of interested parties in examining options for establishing safe access to that area. I don't know what to call it. It's just call it hole in the wall, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we really need to keep the hole in the wall thing out of it.
Yeah, out of it. Okay. That area. And then we designated whatever that area is. I don't know what to call it. Staff, please just come up with some number.
Why don't we just call it Stokes Falls? It's near there. We will understand. It's also
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that'll have to be an amending motion. So if I could get a seconder for that. Thank you, Dr. Bodner. Comments? Hopefully not. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. So that's the amended motion now. Back to the main motion. All those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. I just want to remind staff, just keep our conversation in mind when you start your investigations. I think that'll guide where we want to go. But I would like to thank staff for their presentations, their reports. It's complicated stuff, so that's very helpful, especially Mike and team. That's great. And Jenny. Director Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm wondering if it would be a good idea to invite Modi to a upcoming regional district meeting to discuss our concerns with the traffic in areas like hole in the wall access and the Grove. I'd really like to get an update. They've usually given us one annually and haven't heard anything from them. I know going through the Cathedral Grove is just a nightmare as well. So, understanding what Modi has in mind for traffic control, I'd really like to know that. Thanks.
I believe they removed those zap strips or whatever it is you call them, the rumble thingies, because of the difficulties with trailers. I'm not certain if they removed the slow signs though. I do like the little bollards they put up though. It does help control the traffic from turning left. Daniel, you have a comment? Go ahead.
I think that Director Cote's recommendation is a good one. I know that there's a number of other requests that I believe Director Bodner has also requested staff meetings with MOTH at UBCM, talking about other traffic issues. So this might actually be easier than trying to coordinate a UBCM meeting. We might be able to have the conversation we want, and if there's anything left over, then we can add it to UBCM staff meetings. But I would certainly endorse what was brought forward, and whether you want to make that a resolution or whether we just make note of that is both are good.
You should want to make it a resolution, Director Cote? Might as well. It's a recommendation from the committee. All right, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Johnson. Okay, any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of our planned schedule here. We don't have any late business. Do we have any questions from the attendees or in the Q&A? I'd like to thank Judy Carlson for being here.
We have no questions from the public.
All right, thanks, Janice. That brings us to the end of question period. And now adjournment. Could we have a motion to adjourn, please?
I would move to adjourn.
Thank you, Director McNabb, seconded by literally everyone. I'll pick Director Johnson. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, I'd like to thank you folks for attending, especially since it is one issue, but we did get some West Coast folks here and that helps for quorum. All right, thanks. Also, Shari, oh, you disconnected. I wanted to see her sons. Oh no, that was Tanya's sons. What was that? What was that drawing?
You want to see the artwork? Hey guys,
Yeah, I want to see the drawing.
Hold on.
He like showed it to you and then didn't show the camera.
At the point, you guys, I'm in a meeting. I'm trying to listen.
He should just like wave it behind you at that point. Hey, there we go.
Do you want to tell them what it is? They can hear you. Me.
Ah.
We've got a pond with a crab in it and seaweed, and it looks like Water lilies.
Yeah.
And what kind of animal? And a wolf, and a bird, and a tree, and a basket, or a nest with eggs.
And a squirrel.
And a squirrel, and a frog catching some flies.
Wow.
Wow.
And then what do you got, honey? You want to tell them about it? No? Sunshine and somebody gardening?
No.
No? Okay, then you better tell them.
It's fishing.
Oh, they're fishing.
And that's a dog, squirrel.
Okay, a squirrel going up the tree, a dog, and a fisherman.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great work. All right. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Have a good one. Thank you for the artwork. Have a good day.
Say bye, guys.
Bye.
Feeling better soon, John.
Thank you. Okay.
Why did we
Thanks, Penny. Good to see everyone.
Oh, he said bye. Okay, let's go, guys.